Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron. Welcome back today to another video. It is another Toffees Today episode. I haven't done one of these for a few days of course. Last video we did was the revealing of the new home kit, the 2023-2024 home kit. We sat down on Thursday morning and spoke about that, but we haven't sat down and spoke about the latest news, rumours, reports for the last few days or so. So I thought we'd sit down, do a little 10-minute or so video and just go over what has been going on. And to be fair, not an awful lot has been going on. We haven't really missed out on much in the 4 or 5 days since we last done one of these videos. Of course, we've had some transfer rumours. Of course, we've been linked with some players. But we're at this stage in the transfer window where the links at the moment, you know, are nothing more, or certainly seem like nothing more than just paper talk and, you know, easy links for players that Everton have been linked with before previously, or for players that make sense to be linked with Everton. There doesn't seem to be anything solid at the moment. There still isn't a single player that Everton are being linked with that you look at and you go, okay, I can see that going somewhere. And yeah, as of now, on the 1st of July, 2nd of July, we are today, we haven't signed a single player, and we don't look close to signing a single player either. Now, of course, that could all change in the next 24, 48 hours or so. Everton could be linked with somebody out the blue and, you know, we could sign them the day after. Not usually what happens with Everton. Usually these things take a long time, but you know, we obviously haven't really seen many Everton transfers in the month of June for the last few years or so. Usually it is when, you know, that June deadline is passed and we get into July, and obviously the new sort of footballing season officially starts in July. Players are due back for pre-season, etc, etc. Pre-season games start in a couple of weeks, so this is hopefully the month where we'll see some movement, and hopefully over the next week or so we should see some solid links regarding players that are going to come into Everton Football Club. But anyway, we have had a little bit of news, so I thought we'd sit down and discuss it. Let's start with Everton captain Ellis Coleman. He has signed a new 1-year contract extension with the club. Obviously, heavy rumours towards the back end of last season that Ellis Coleman will not only be offered a contract extension but will also sign a contract extension. We'd obviously heard a couple of weeks ago that Yerry Mina, Andros Townsend and Asmir Begovic were all going to leave the football club. The club revealed that in their retained list, and they also said in that retained list that contracts had been offered to Tom Davies and to Ellis Coleman. Tom obviously had rejected his contract, and we found that out a couple of days ago as well. I'm not quite sure we've spoken about that on the channel since it was released. Obviously, Tom Davies announcing that he will be leaving Everton Football Club. He will not be signing a new contract, and for me, again, I'm not particularly sitting here furious or fuming or upset, etc, etc. I understand there was a lot of Blues that weren't happy at the fact that he'd been offered that contract in the first place. I tried to look at it in more of a business point of view, in the sense of that, you know, whilst Tom Davies mightn't be the level we need him to be, you know, as a starting Premier League central midfielder, I don't think there's any questioning that he's a relatively capable squad player. And for the money that he would have cost in wages, I would probably assume maybe £1 million odd a year, maybe £1.5 million a year. It would probably cost Everton more than that to go out and replace him. And we do need to replace Tom Davies. I've seen a few people on social media saying we don't need to replace him. He's crap. He hardly ever plays. I'm not talking about replacing him because of his importance. I'm talking about replacing him in terms of his space in this squad. Now, whether that is replaced by a young player coming up and being given it, you know, an opportunity, I'm not quite sure. Lewis Warrington is a name that has been obviously thrown about a little bit. It might have been Isaac Price if he hadn't have left the football club this summer. I don't know, but if it isn't a young player that's going to step up and take that place, and that place may look like just a space on the bench for the entirety of the season, but it isn't. It's a place of somebody that the manager can rely on to bring on in need be in the last 10-15 minutes of games, and somebody that the manager believes has enough ability to play in the Premier League. If that isn't found in one of the young players, then we'll need to go out and bring in another central midfielder, because, you know, ultimately we can't really afford to lose players in this current squad, because the squad was paper thin anyway before we lost Yerry Mina, before we lost Andros Townsend, before we lost Tom Davies. So, you know, we can't just allow these players to leave and then not replace them. And I'm not saying Tom Davies was unbelievable and we need to replace his ability, but we can't be in a position where, you know, for the last season, 2 seasons, we've been in a position where every match day there's 2 goalkeepers on the bench, and that was with having Tom Davies, Yerry Mina and Andros Townsend at the football club. So without those players at the football club, who are we going to replace them with? So yeah, again, I'm not sitting here fuming or upset that Tom has left the football club. Ultimately, I respect his decision. A little bit like John Joe Kenny, I respected his decision. He probably wasn't going to get first team football here at any point over the foreseeable future. So the fact that he's chosen to go away and try and pursue that elsewhere is admirable, and I respect him for that. I'd just like to know what Everton's plan is to replace that player now in the squad. Some people would like to hope it would be one of the youngsters, but the reality is that can only be possible if the youngsters are good enough. But anyway, Tom Davies aside, Seamus Coleman signed a new deal. Always felt like this would be the case. Again, the way in which Seamus obviously went off injured towards the back end of last season, it wasn't really, for me, something that I imagine Seamus Coleman wanting his Everton career to end on the back of coming off on a stretcher, in the penultimate game of the season, or the third to last game of the season, when we were already, when we were in a relegation battle and we weren't officially safe. I couldn't have imagined them sort of sitting down this summer, and reflecting on this season and saying, yeah, do you know what, I'm happy with that, I'm done now. So I always felt he would sign that deal when he was offered it. Absolutely right that he should be offered it. I understand and I appreciate the sort of conversation around Seamus Coleman. He is coming towards the end of his career, and had Everton had suitable replacements in place, maybe he wouldn't have been offered that contract extension. Maybe he would have been able to retire at the end of this season, happy and sort of go into a coaching role or move on in whatever else he wants to do. But the reality is Everton haven't got that replacement. We've got Nathan Patterson in, who's again, a good young player, but he's had injury problems in the last year or so. He hasn't quite got to that level we need him to be at. So the reality is we need Seamus Coleman. And if Seamus wouldn't have signed that contract extension, we would have 1,000% need to go out and buy another right back. And there's still an argument that we do need to go out and buy another right back, because we can't rely on Seamus Coleman because of his age and because of his injuries. And I hate to say it, but Nathan Patterson doesn't seem the most reliable at the moment as well. So but yeah, good news overall. Obviously, as I said, I would have hated Seamus' Everton career to have ended on the back of that injury. And I'm sure, we'll all be excited to see him in an Everton shirt. Again, he's still more than capable of doing a job. I thought he was excellent this season. Has done it when we done our seasonal player ratings. I thought he was absolutely fantastic when he was called upon. And yeah, again, fantastic news that he's signed his new contract. Moving on to a player that Everton have been linked with in the last 6 months, linked with Everton again, according to Chris Wheeler of the Daily Mail. Everton are interested in signing Villarreal forward Arnaut Danjuma on loan. There is no bad blood between Danjuma and Everton, despite him rejecting a loan in January. According to El Periodico Mediterraneo, pardon me if I've butchered that, that is via Sport Witness. They have also said that, bear with me 2 seconds because I've just lost the article. They have also said that Everton and Crystal Palace are both interested in Arnaut Danjuma from Villarreal this summer. Again, obviously, we know Danjuma from previous transfer negotiations. He was, by all accounts, an Everton player in January. He was, I believe, the forward that Farhad Moshiri had promised us when he done that interview and said, we will sign a forward. Reports suggesting that he'd done his media, stuff with Everton. He'd taken his pictures. He'd done all of that, all of this, all of the other. Whether that was true, we don't know. The fact of the reality is he was incredibly close to signing for Everton, and then he got an offer from Tottenham, which was obviously more lucrative. London, the capital of the country, big stadium, club promised for the future, all of that stuff. And he turned around and basically put two fingers up to us and said, nah, I want to go there. Doesn't sit well with me, this one. Now, I understand and I appreciate everybody saying, yeah, but we're not really in a position, Cam, to turn down these types of players. And, although he turned us down in January, if he's interested now, then we should look at him because we need attacking players and etc, etc. I get all of that. I worry about the attitude thing. I do. I think he seemed, from what reports are suggesting, and you never know what's true. He might have just done a medical and that was it, and then he changed his mind. Then other reports suggesting he was basically in the door and he turned around and said, no, actually, I'm going to go here. Just think it worries me a little bit attitude-wise. Again, I understand people will say, well, can you blame him? Can you have a go with him, etc, etc. I get all of that. I do get all of that. But the reality of the situation is we needed a forward at that point, and he knew what he was coming into. And then he turned around and said, actually, no, I'm not really interested in that. I want to go here instead. And you get people who say, yeah, but we can't blame him, etc., etc. I just worry if we are in that position again next season, and touch wood that we aren't, but if we are in that position again next season, will he do that again? Or not necessarily will he turn around and walk away, but will his attitude drop? Will he down tools? Will it sort of be well, I'm only on loan, so I'm not affected if they go down. I'm just, I'm not really interested in this. I don't know, and I get we're in a position at the moment where we're not really in we're not really in the position to be picking and choosing who we sign, and to be turning down certain players because of certain things, etc., etc. Maybe he's made a mistake. He barely played for Tottenham, did he? And let's be honest, maybe he sat there and thought, actually, do you know what, this isn't as good as what I thought it'd be. I'd rather go to Everton. But I don't know. There's questions there that I definitely would be a little bit worried about if we were to sign him, as to his attitude, if we were to be in that position again. Plus, I just think it's a little bit lazy. It's like the Leeds thing. Would I Nonto at Everton from Leeds? Would I like Somerville? Yeah, they're good players, but it just seems so easy. Everton being linked with players that have just been relegated to the Championship, Everton being linked with the same lad they were linked with in January that turned them down. Is there nobody else in world football? Is there no other winger in world football that'd be capable of coming in and doing a job for us that hasn't got that previous with the football club? Because, can you imagine Danjuma comes in and a couple of games in, he has a bit of a bad game and his head's dropped and he's not really working hard? There's already that sort of pre-default reason to have a go at him, isn't he? There's already that preloaded sort of complaint about him as well. He didn't want to be here anyway. He turned us down when he could have come in, last year, etc., etc. I don't know. I just, again, would I have him? Probably, yeah, because of the position that we're in and because our forward options are so weak. But I just like us to be linked with somebody that I've never really heard of before, that I go, that's not too bad. It just seems like it's always the same players. It's always the same people. That's not really an example of good recruitment. But anyway, we'll wait and see how this one progresses over the coming days and weeks. Paul Joyce reported last night that Everton striker Ellis Simms is attracting interest from Championship sides Swansea City, Coventry City and Ipswich Town. Simms is valued between £7 and £10 million. If Everton can get £10 million for Ellis Simms, I will be absolutely over the moon for that. Couple of social media pictures over the last couple of days or so, stating that he's been in Swansea, he's been in and around the city, potentially talking to Swansea. I'm sure that he will have visited, multiple clubs or multiple training facilities to have conversations about his future, etc. It seems like Everton are sold on selling him, and if they can get a figure of £10 million for him, and he isn't in the plans for next season, then we absolutely should be selling him. If he's gonna again, featured in 6 Premier League games next season and only come off the bench for the last 10 minutes in those games, and we can get 10 million for him, then what's the point in keeping him at the football club? We may as well sell him. Again, I believe there's players at Ipswich, there's players at Coventry, of course. Guy Carez still is a Coventry player at the moment that Everton are interested in, so maybe they can be used as some form of bargaining tool. I don't know. I think if Ellis Simms is to be sold, it won't be in any form of swap deal or any form of you can have him and we'll give you 10 million for this player. I think with Ellis Simms being a homegrown talent and with Everton being in such a financial mess at the moment, as much money as we can get for a homegrown talent that has cost us nothing will look really good on the financial side. So, yeah, we'll see how that one progresses. Again, I'm not particularly disappointed with that. I don't really think Ellis was going to have a particularly bright future as a Premier League striker, as a number 9. Could he have done a job off the bench next season? Maybe. But if you can get 10 million quid for him, then I don't really think we're in the position to be turning that down. And then finally, before we go, according to Sports Pete O'Rourke, Everton have made contact with Manchester United over a possible deal for goalkeeper Tom Heaton. Let's not forget that Everton are in need of a backup goalkeeper. Obviously, we lost Asmir Begovic this summer. I think Andy Lonergan has been offered a new contract. I'm not too sure whether or not he has signed that new contract yet. However, You know, Lonergan obviously was a number 3 last season, and you know, you would like to hope that Everton wouldn't need to rely on him to be a number 2. Not because I don't think he's good enough, but just because, you know, if he was a number 3 last season, then we really should be going out and buying a number 2 now, and Lonergan still being that number 3 next season. So yeah, we'll wait and see how that one happens. Tom Eaton makes sense. Worked with Sean Dyche before. Again, used to being a number 2. Whether or not he'd rather be either Man United, I'm not too sure. But goalkeeper is certainly a position Everton need to look at this summer. So there you go. That is all the latest news as of now. Let us know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. If you have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. We'll be back over the next couple of days. But until then, big thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. And we'll see you later.